Kevin never liked studying. He spent his days fighting and getting into trouble. But oddly enough, he used to listen to me the most. I promised him that if he made it into the top 5 in the class, I'd grant him a wish. He really did change his ways, buried himself in his studies, restrained his temper, and stopped getting into fights. That was until the transfer student arrived, the one with the bright, confident smile who loved motorcycles and blowing smoke rings. Kevin started skipping classes again, and I went to find him. He reached out, took the cigarette from the transfer student's mouth, took a deep drag, and smiled mischievously. Celine, a poor kid like you, the only thing you've got going for you is how obedient you are, right? It's just that being obedient is pretty boring. I said nothing, turning away silently. Then I threw the scarf I had spent more than a week knitting for him straight into the trash. Chapter 1. Kevin had started skipping classes again. After evening study ended, I had just stepped into the hallway when I was stopped by his mom. His mom was my mom's best friend. She moved to our neighborhood a few years ago, and as a single mother supporting a family, it wasn't easy for her to always keep an eye on Kevin. As a result, Kevin had spent much of the past few years at our house. So, when she couldn't find Kevin, she usually came to me. I had already decided not to get involved with Kevin anymore, because ever since that transfer student Misty showed up, he didn't like being associated with me. He would even keep his distance after school, as if afraid someone might misunderstand. But back then, he was the one who stuck to me, wanting to spend every hour of the day by my side. Just as I was about to refuse, I met the tear-filled eyes of that middle-aged woman. My heart softened instinctively, and I thought about how my mom must also worry about me the same way. Back in my room, I dug out the scarf I had long since finished knitting. In the past couple of years, knitting scarves has become popular. Last year, he'd kept begging me to make one for him. This fall, when it was still early, whenever we walked home together, he'd always rub his neck in front of me on purpose, hinting, "Hey, my neck always feels like something's missing. It's so chilly." Celine, didn't you knit several for your parents? So, am I the one left out? When he said that, he sounded so pitiful, like a sad little puppy trying to win sympathy. In late autumn, the streets were already covered in dried, yellow leaves. The cold wind blew in through my collar, and I shrank from the chill. It really was getting cold. Kevin's pitiful look flashed through my mind, and I took out his favorite gray yarn from the cabinet, starting to knit the scarf. Chapter 2. I found Kevin by the river. He was setting off fireworks for Misty. Just as I walked over, I heard him say, "Are you feeling a bit better today?" Before he could finish, he caught sight of me from the corner of his eye, and the smile on his face froze. Our eyes met, and the air between us instantly grew tense. It was Misty who broke the awkward silence first. She turned to me with a bright smile and said, "Celine, I'm feeling down today. Kevin is just keeping me company to cheer me up. You don't mind, do you?" I didn't say anything. Instead, I turned to look at Kevin, and suddenly one of the firework tubes on the ground exploded. Startled, I saw Kevin rush to Misty, carefully shielding her head and face. Some sparks fell on the back of my hand, and some hit my clothes, burning a couple of small holes. My heart felt a sting at that moment, but I suppressed my discomfort and said, "Your mom is really worried about you. If you're not too busy, at least give her a call." Misty let out a laugh. "Celine, you sound like a boring old housekeeper. What exactly is your relationship with Kevin?" I hadn't even said anything when Kevin hurriedly blurted out, "Don't misunderstand, we're just regular neighbors." Regular neighbors? Would a regular neighbor beg someone to knit a scarf for them? Would a regular neighbor lose his temper and beat up a guy who was pursuing me? Would a regular neighbor eat at my house for 2 years? I stood there, stunned, feeling only a bitter irony, hearing the answer she wanted. Misty smirked slightly, then pulled out a pack of cigarettes, lighting one up effortlessly. I looked up at Kevin and asked him one last time, "So, in your eyes, we've always just been regular neighbors, is that right?" Kevin didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached out, took the cigarette from Misty's mouth, took a deep drag, and smiled insolently. "Celine, a poor kid like you really is obedient, but it's just boring obedience." "What? Do regular neighbors care if someone is interesting or not? If only you had half the confidence you think you have, turns out you made the right pick. Didn't you? I looked at him mockingly, then turned and walked away, tossing the gift bag with the scarf into the trash as I went. Shit! Behind me, I heard his furious curse, followed by the sound of something being kicked into the river. Chapter 3. Not long after, rumors about Kevin and Misty's early romance started spreading around the class, getting more and more intense. There were even posts about them on the school forum, and some people even dubbed them the school prince and princess. With their newfound fame, they naturally drew the attention of the teachers, and both of their parents were called in. I didn't know the specifics of what happened, but Misty came back with a slap mark on her face and her eyes red. Kevin's expression was dark and menacing. He walked straight toward me, glaring at me fiercely, and kicked over my desk. Honestly, after our relationship changed, I thought the worst that could happen was us becoming indifferent strangers. I didn't expect we could end up like this. That he would look at me with such malice, like he was looking at an enemy or something filthy. I was stunned for just a moment, then stood up and looked at him coldly. What do you want, Kevin? He grabbed me by the collar. What do I want? You don't know? I really have to hand it to you. Still pretending? Playing innocent, acting all obedient and dignified. Are you that in love with acting? Then why don't you become an actress? Let me tell you, if you have anything to say it to my face. Come at me directly. What's the point of all these shady tactics? I tried to break free from his grip, but his strength was overwhelming. I could feel a choking sensation around my neck, so I kicked him as hard as I could in the groin, and he finally let go in pain. What did I pretend about? Why would I pretend? I retorted. Why pretend? Don't you know yourself? He gave me a cruel, mocking smile. I couldn't help but laugh. For you? Heh. Sometimes I really have to hand it to you. Where does your confidence come from? Do you wake up every morning and fantasize in front of the mirror, thinking that someone else is falling for the charm you imagined for yourself? I'm honestly jealous of how empty your head is. It must be so easy to deceive and glorify yourself. I rarely spoke so harshly all at once, but he was blaming me for all this nonsense, and I just couldn't take it anymore. I even felt ashamed that I used to think of this person as a friend, that I used to value someone so inherently mean and despicable. You bitch! My words completely enraged him. The veins on his forehead bulged, and he clenched his fists, pulling back his arm, ready to punch me. I wasn't the slightest bit scared. I just looked at him coldly and said, "What did my mom ever do to you? Do you think insulting someone else's mom makes you cool? Is that what you've become over the years, someone with no decency at all? Let's just say the meals my mom cooked for you were all wasted on a dog." Kevin's mom used to work long hours, making barely enough to cover her debts. After she moved to our neighborhood, Kevin had almost every breakfast and dinner at our house. During holidays, he basically stayed with us. I never mentioned any of this before. I always tried to protect his pride. But today, without understanding anything, he kicked over my desk and grabbed me to interrogate me. The anger in my heart burned fiercely. Once friends, there were still some benefits, because I knew where it hurt the most, and I knew exactly where to twist the knife. A flash of embarrassment crossed his face before he stormed out. Misty glared at me before chasing after him. During lunch break, they returned. Kevin had a bag in his hand. He pulled out several stacks of cash and threw them at me, one after another. Is this enough? Wasn't it your family that wanted to show how kind they were, coming to my house to help? Now you're bringing all this up. What's the point? If the meals your family cooked were for sale, you should have said so earlier. Now you want both the reputation and the reward. What are you even trying to do? Kevin's dad had returned half a year ago. Apparently, he made a fortune somewhere, buying a mansion in the wealthy part of the city with a wave of his hand. So now that he was suddenly rich overnight, how could he care for a poor kid like me who once shared struggles with him? He could now just throw money at me. I was flipping through a dictionary, and everyone around us was staring. He did this on purpose, to humiliate me in front of everyone. I picked up the dictionary and threw it back at him. It was a Chinese-English dictionary, and its corners were pretty hard. I hit him right on the temple, scraping the skin there. Misty glared at me, furious. What the hell is wrong with you? Can't take it? You're both poor and stubborn. She looked at Kevin's injury, clearly upset. I wasn't enraged. I just said calmly, for someone with all that money, you're still stupid and mean. Huh? Seems like money didn't help much. Did it? Enough. You've always looked down on me. Big know-it-all. But I don't want to owe you anything. He took more money from someone beside him, pulled Misty along, and left. Later that afternoon, someone deposited 30,000 yuan into my meal card. We always knew each other's meal card numbers, and it used to be a warm gesture. He used to go out and do part-time jobs handing out flyers just because I was always eating plain vegetables. He saved up to refill my meal card and then tried to convince me that I was mistaken, that it was a nice surprise, and I should treat myself to something good. Or he'd make up some excuse that it was probably the school rewarding me for keeping my grades up. Such clumsy lies. But they were the greatest comfort during those hard times. But he didn't know, this world is very small. I had already seen him handing out flyers under the scorching sun. He also didn't know that the thick winter coat I gave him that year was bought with the money I earned from tutoring for the first time. After 2 trial lessons, I started tutoring on weekends as a part-time job. My rates were low, and I was responsible. So more and more people came to me. I kept it up for half a semester. The money I earned went to our meals and to my family during that winter, which I cherished deeply. Back then, everything was wonderful. It felt like the gift of the Magi, our intentions more precious than anything else. And now, he's the one mocking me, looking down on me. Chapter 4. Time flew, and it was already my second year in high school. The pressure to study became more intense. To avoid wasting time on my way home, I decided to live on campus. During this time, Kevin and I became strangers who no longer recognized each other when we met. Only Misty sat in front of me, and he often came around to the point where it annoyed me. Kevin, who used to have a compulsive cleanliness habit, was now regularly cleaning Misty's desk. He'd help clear out the snack bags from her desk, wipe it thoroughly with wet tissues, and even allow her to eat instant noodles and greasy beef jerky at his desk. When those things stained his desk or his jacket, he'd just pinch her cheeks, looking exasperated yet affectionate, saying, "You little messy eater." Suddenly, I remembered those years when I compromised for him, always doing the dishes after meals because he hated greasy things, were the times I knew about his obsession with cleanliness. So I'd clean the house in advance, mopping the floors until they shone. Turns out, I had been overthinking it. Turns out, his cleanliness was selective, but it's all in the past now, and I don't have the energy or time to waste on it. Whether out of responsibility or conscience, I needed to study hard and give my parents and myself a satisfactory answer with my report card. I thought life would continue like this, in a predictable rhythm. But suddenly, for some reason, Misty also decided to live on campus, and she was assigned to the same dorm room as me. On the day she moved in, Kevin even came to help her make her bed. In the afternoon, after working on problems for too long, I'd usually try to take a bath after dinner to cool down and clear my mind. When I came out of the bathroom with a towel wrapped around me, I caught Kevin's ambiguous gaze. I hastily grabbed a jacket and put it on, anger filling my chest. "Misty, this is the girls' dormitory. Can't you read?" I said. She didn't even get a chance to reply before Kevin stepped in front of her, confronting me. "Celine, can you stop pretending for a day? Will it kill you? When I used to come to your house, you often wore." I cut him off with a slap. He wanted to say I used to wear pajamas at home, but that was not an excuse for a guy to come into the girls' dorm. Besides, even if I wore pajamas, they were just normal sleepwear, nothing inappropriate. Not wanting to argue with them any longer, I went straight to get the dorm supervisor. So on Misty's first day moving in, she and Kevin got disciplinary records. Maybe we were never meant to get along. Even if I swallowed my pride, she wouldn't let me go. Not long after she moved in, she'd complained that her money had been stolen or that her belongings had gone missing. There were 6 of us in the dorm, 2 were her followers, and 2 chose to stay out of it, keeping quiet. The 3 of them often gossiped about me, saying it was bad luck to share a room with a poor student, that some people, used to being poor, lacked any decency. I argued back every time and fought with them, but it was truly exhausting. and Kevin would only add fuel to the fire. In class, he would deliberately say things to provoke me. Didn't I put money on your meal card? Can you stop embarrassing yourself? Like an annoying fly, won't kill you, but will disgust you to death. One day, Misty said her HR face cream had been emptied, and her minions chimed in sarcastically. It's always the poor ones. Maybe they've never used anything nice in their life, so they have to sneak and use their roommate's stuff. I told her to make herself clear. Who was the poor one? She replied, whoever's reacting and finds it offensive. That's who. Being poor doesn't necessarily mean being a poor jerk, but if you're vile enough, you just become a filthy scumbag. Things quickly got out of hand, until Misty stood up, acting magnanimous, saying she didn't really care and that if anyone wanted to use it, they could just ask her. They were determined to pin this on me. She was magnanimous, but I wasn't. I decided to call the police. While we were waiting for them, the rest of the class showed up, including Kevin. He rushed up and grabbed my arm. Celine, when will you stop? Haven't used that cheap stuff. Huh? I'll buy you 10 bottles, okay? Do you really have to embarrass yourself here? What the heck? Did they both join some cult or something? Couldn't survive a day without acting like jerks? Not wanting any more contact with him, I pulled my arm out of his grip and coldly said, "Get lost." The police arrived quickly. Misty crossed her arms confidently, looking at me. Before long, one of her lackeys couldn't wait any longer and opened one of my snow cream jars, acting all clever. Hey, this doesn't seem like. Everyone's attention was drawn to her, and another chimed in. Not like the cheap cream Celine uses. Huh. I couldn't help but smile at their performance. Basically, they wanted to send the cream for testing. If it turned out to be true, it would be considered theft on my part, and given that the cream was relatively expensive, it would meet the filing standards for a case. I fully supported this idea. Never let a thief get away, but also don't let any despicable person falsely accuse others. That snow cream jar had been sitting there all along, and even though it was mine, how could anyone prove that I was the one who touched it? If I really wanted to steal, would I make such a spectacle by putting it in the dorm? And how did this roommate's nose become sharper than a dog's, able to differentiate between creams? After I said that, the roommate who had sniffed the cream immediately stood up and said, "Do you think everyone is as poor as you? We handle this every day." Of course. We can tell the difference. Oh, that familiar. Huh? Then let's do an experiment. If you can pick out which ones are your HR creams from a pile of unmarked jars, it'll prove you weren't deliberately framing me. Otherwise, the police are here. I wonder if publicly framing someone in front of law enforcement is illegal. The situation became tense. And finally, our homeroom teacher stepped in to mediate, suggesting it was probably a misunderstanding, and sent the police away. It looked like the situation was resolved, but in reality, it wasn't. After this incident, rumors spread across the entire school that I was a thief who stole face cream, and things escalated until people began spreading nasty gossip about me. They said I was poor and greedy, and even claimed that after getting used to using nice things and not being able to steal them anymore, I started selling myself to get the money to buy them. The rumors almost drowned me out. To be honest, it was overwhelming, but I refused to be easily defeated. The more they did this, the more I wanted to persevere. Only if I was truly broken would they get what they wanted. In this matter, I became infamous, slowly turning into everyone's laughing stock. Even when I went to the supermarket to buy a bottle of water, a group of boys surrounded me, taunting me. One of them took out a HR cream from his backpack and handed it to me, saying, "Miss Top Student, how many nights will this get me?" At that moment, Kevin happened to pass by. He looked at me with a gaze like I was some sort of filth. At first, those boys thought he might intervene, so they restrained themselves. But seeing his indifferent attitude, they only grew bolder. I didn't argue. Instead, I slowly stepped back, then started running. Their jeering followed me until I found a security guard. The laughter froze on their faces, and eventually, they were taken away by the security guard. I heard their homeroom teacher was called to deal with them afterward. I began to realize that tolerating these things wouldn't make them go away. I had to stir up something bigger. Something that would force those in charge to pay attention. Something that would make Misty and her lackeys suffer in a way they'd never forget for the rest of their lives. So I could finally get rid of these parasites. Chapter 5. Meanwhile, when it rains, it pours. My father's condition was worsening, and he needed heart bypass surgery. The money we had saved wasn't nearly enough. And Kevin's mother, who had promised to lend us money before, had now gone back on her word. At home, my mom paced anxiously, making calls to every possible friend or relative who might lend us money, with the faint hope that it might work. I went to find Kevin's mom. It was naive of me, and in my mind, I still recalled her pitiful expression when she begged me to look after Kevin. I wondered, could someone really turn their back on you so quickly? But she didn't even let me inside. She looked at me with the same gaze Kevin had, like she was looking at garbage. Celine, didn't your mother teach you self-respect? Do you really need to be this greedy? Haven't you had enough of the money Kevin gave you? So young and already so insatiable. She spat out many such sentences. As I looked at her fierce expression, I recalled her tearful pleas to help her find Kevin, or to ask my mom to take care of Kevin. I couldn't help but wonder, is this really the same person? It didn't matter anymore. One must learn from their experiences. I didn't argue with her, nor did I ask her again. I just turned around and left. Staying any longer would only bring more humiliation, and if I already knew the outcome, there was no need to waste more time. Just as I stepped out of the building, I ran straight into Kevin, who was returning from playing basketball. He looked at me confidently and said, "It's not entirely impossible to lend you the money. What are the conditions? You go and apologize to Misty. You made a mistake, and it's only because of her generosity that she didn't hold it against you. But that's not a reason for you to push your luck." So, this is what it was all about. He stood a short distance away, watching with interest, waiting for my compromise and submission. I raised my eyes and looked at him coldly, speaking softly. "Kevin, what? Finally ready to admit you're wrong? Those who are low will eventually get what's coming to them. Your time is near." My father's surgery couldn't be delayed, but I didn't trust a promise from someone like him, and admitting to stealing would essentially be a death sentence for my entire family. Fortunately, Kevin's mother reminded me that the money in my meal card hadn't been touched much yet. So, I went to the cafeteria, made a scene, and managed to get the money refunded. I sent it to the hospital to help my mom deal with the urgent medical needs. The next day when I got to school, my desk was covered in insulting messages painted in bright red: thief, prostitute, and other humiliating words that made the desk an eyesore. The homeroom teacher went through the motions of asking who had done it during class. Since no one confessed, there were no consequences. However, she privately spoke to me and said I shouldn't keep causing trouble just because of my good grades, and that it takes two to tango. Kevin crossed his arms and watched from the side. When I got closer, he looked at me mockingly, saying, "Celine, after all these years, have you learned nothing? Are you going to cry and run to your mom again? I told you, if you just apologized to Misty." I slapped him across the face. The sharp sound of the slap echoed through the entire hallway, silencing everyone. "Teacher, does it make a sound? Can a single slap make a sound?" I glared at them, holding back the tears threatening to spill from my eyes. The homeroom teacher was silent for a moment. Then she grew furious. "Celine, you dare to treat a classmate like this in front of me? Do you really think you're blameless for everything that's happened? You." I didn't pay her any more attention, straightened my back, and walked away with large strides. That evening after the night study session, I didn't return to the dorm. Instead, in the afternoon, I went to Misty's lackey, the one with the weakest mental state, and repeatedly questioned her, asking if she wanted to drive me to death. I told her that if I died, it would be her fault. Then, under each of their pillows, I left a note: "I will haunt you even after I die." I also left a suicide note in my desk, detailing how I was bullied at school, how I couldn't bear the mental pressure, and how I felt I had let my parents down, but really couldn't keep going anymore. I walked out of the school gate and headed towards the river along monitored areas. First, I called a popular live streamer who gained fame discussing school bullying. Initially, I couldn't get through, so I started spamming her chat. sending private messages saying I felt like I couldn't hold on anymore and wanted to end everything now. Once she replied, I briefly explained the situation at school. The call finally connected, and I calmly explained what I'd experienced. The host tried to comfort me, repeatedly asking for my location. I stayed silent, refusing to give an answer, but deliberately walked to the bus stop. When a bus arrived, and the stop was announced, I pretended not to notice and continued walking toward the riverbank, then climbed over the railing without hesitation and jumped into the river. It was like someone streaming a suicide, but actually doing it. Soon, topics like XX school bullying and student jumping into river at night began trending on social media. The live stream recording, along with my chat with the influencer, spread widely online. Chapter 6. I floated in the water for about 2 hours before they found me. Other than a few scratches, I wasn't in any life-threatening condition. I lay in the hospital, receiving IN4, looking utterly desolate. My mother was the first to arrive. I held back my tears, urging her to go back to my father, but she just held me tightly, repeatedly saying I'm sorry. I was taken aback. I thought she'd scold me first. Doing something like this, I really had no other choice. But I never actually intended to die. When I was little, my family lived by a small town near the river for some time. Back then, many children there were good swimmers, and I learned to swim along with them to supplement our income. I often caught fish and shrimp. My mother feared I'd rely too much on my swimming skills and get reckless, so she moved us after getting a job transfer. After my repeated urging, my mother finally left, buying me some hot porridge before she went. I had only eaten a few bites when I saw Kevin, eyes red, stumbling in. He reached out to touch me, but I deliberately knocked the hot porridge over him. The porridge was freshly cooked. It was quite hot. His chest turned red and seemed to blister, but he seemed oblivious, just staring at me intently. I sneered at him. Kevin, I'm not dead. Are you disappointed? No, I didn't know. He panicked, trying to explain. Once again didn't know. Do people never know what they're doing? Disgusting. Suddenly, out of the corner of my eye, I noticed some journalists coming in. Instantly, I put on a hysterical, panicked expression and screamed, "Leave! Can't you all just let me go?" I really didn't take Misty's stuff. I swear I didn't. Tears streamed down my face, and I yanked out the 4 tubes, creating a mess. Blood spurted out, and Kevin, in a panic, tried to hold down my arm, but a flash from a camera momentarily blinded him. He froze, his eyes reflecting shock, and eventually, a look of hurt settled in them. How hypocritical, when he was helping them bully me. He didn't think anything was wrong. When I used their own methods against them, he suddenly felt wronged. The journalists blocked him away from me, aiming their cameras and asking what his relationship was with me. He hesitated, as if his throat was stuffed with cotton, trying several times but unable to say a word, before finally fleeing in panic. The journalists, seeing I was in no state for an interview, simply left me a business card and then departed. I let the nurse reinsert the 4 needle, while the room filled with voices talking about me. They said they thought that boy had a close relationship with me because in the video, he went to the place where I jumped into the river in the middle of the night. If no one had pulled him back, he might have jumped after me. Wow. I didn't watch the video, but just imagining it made me feel sick. He always did these pointless, disgusting things. Chapter 7. As I had expected. Once I escalated things to the point of chaos, the teachers suddenly started to realize that maybe one hand can make a sound. I no longer had to prove myself. The very night I jumped into the river, one of Misty's minions couldn't handle the psychological pressure and brought that note to the teacher, confessing everything. Many students at school also took to the internet, recounting the events of my bullying. The situation spiraled out of control. Soon, the ever-resourceful netizens unearthed all kinds of information about Misty, including details about her family's business. Her family ran an old skincare company. Kevin's father's company was a raw material supplier for her family. The video of Kevin visiting me in the hospital that night also surfaced online, combined with some of our former friends and classmates explaining our relationship. Kevin too found himself under heavy scrutiny. The more the netizens dug, the more they found out. Turns out Kevin was just the illegitimate son of his so-called wealthy father. Especially for Misty's family's company. Their stores and online profiles were flooded with angry comments. A swarm of netizens left messages on the company's official accounts, afraid to use it. Even the rich lady doesn't use it. She says this is cheap cream, and you're selling it to us. Afraid to use it. I can't swim. Afraid of drowning. Selling low-quality products to the poor to make money to buy luxury cream for the rich lady. Right? Misty's family faced harsh criticism, and their competitors took advantage of the momentum. Making the most out of the situation, their rival company held a new product launch event and, on the same day, made a donation to cover my dad's surgery costs. They also donated 10,000 bottles of antifreeze cream to girls in rural villages. This goodwill gesture almost stole half of Misty's family's orders. After my father's surgery, I quickly returned to school. Chapter 8. This incident brought a significant impact on the school. The homeroom teacher was fired for negligence, and several students who participated in the bullying faced severe punishment, while the main instigator, Misty, was expelled. The IDs of those who spread rumors on the forum were found to belong to Misty and her friends, with over 5 million views. My mom took over the lawsuit against them after my dad was discharged. Kevin still tried to convince us to let the matter go. One day, he came to my house, but my mom didn't let him in. She spoke to him at the door. Kevin, did we do anything to wrong you? He bowed his head. No, it's my fault. You can blame me. But Misty is just a young girl. If she gets a criminal record, how will she live the rest of her life? She's a young girl, and my daughter isn't? How did we treat you? And how did you treat her? Were you trying to drive her to death? No, I wasn't. I just didn't know. Oh, so now you know? You know that a criminal record is bad. So why did you help others frame her? I didn't frame her. I thought. Before he could finish, my mom slapped him hard across the face. I deeply regret letting a wolf into my home. If I had known it would come to this, I would never have been so foolishly kind. You're old enough to understand this. We don't need to greet each other when we meet in the future. Being strangers is just fine. Also, we're poor, and there's no elevator here. The stairs are hard to climb, so you'd best not come anymore. After driving Kevin away, my mother returned to the kitchen with her usual calm demeanor to chop vegetables. As I approached, I saw tears streaming down her face. She put down the knife and hugged me tightly, whispering, "Celine, I'm so sorry. Mom is so useless. I'm sorry." Silently, I hugged her back. This period has been really tough for our family. To say that we have no resentment towards Kevin and his mother would be a lie. We aren't trying to demand repayment by pointing out our past kindness, and we never thought of defaulting on borrowed money. Moreover, the reason my mom asked for help was because over the years, we had also lent money to Kevin's mom several times, especially during the years before his father returned. Back then, my mom thought that if her friend agreed to help, she would certainly follow through. But it turns out that when someone's leg heals, the first thing they discard is their crutch. Chapter 9. After Misty dropped out, she was even more carefree. Kevin skipped classes more and more to be with her. After being called to school several times, his mother came to me again. I sneered. "Auntie, are we that close? How can you be so rude?" She looked at me with a grim expression. I'm always polite to people, but when it comes to some things that aren't quite people, I might not be. Kevin didn't come home that night. He didn't come back the next day either. By the afternoon, his mom was in a panic and went straight to the police. After searching for a day and a night, they finally found Kevin at the bottom of a valley, his leg broken and his face covered in blood. It was nighttime, and no one noticed him at first. It turns out that this was part of Misty's game. Whoever won would qualify to be her boyfriend. Kevin hadn't been riding motorcycles for long, and he ended up crashing off the cliff. They were racing in a very remote area. By the time the rescuers found him, the window for optimal treatment of his broken leg had passed, leaving him permanently crippled, and maybe due to bad luck. He also got a long scar across his face. After leaving the hospital, the scar ran across both of his cheeks. He cautiously went to see Misty, only to be frightened away by her scream of horror. After staying silent at home for some time, he came to see me. He asked if that promise from before still counted. He asked if I would still help him. Looking at this ridiculous scene, I couldn't help but mock him. Kevin, did you break your brain along with your leg? Since then, he locked himself in his room, only coming out to eat and use the bathroom. His mom was terribly worried. She first went to my house, trying to convince my mom to persuade me, but my mom chased her away with a broom. Not giving up, she came to the school to try her luck with me. She cried her heart out. Celine, can you really bear to see Kevin's life destroyed? I have no problem with it, Auntie, I said coldly. Looking at her, she froze, staring at me in disbelief. Auntie, was it me who ruined him? Or do you think it was all Misty's fault? You know in your heart who shaped him to be like this, don't you? The woman stood there like a silent tree, and then I saw her back collapse inch by inch. But I was merely an onlooker. As long as one is not hopelessly foolish, they will eventually stop being the one taken advantage of. Chapter 10. When the National College entrance exams began, Misty, having been expelled, did not participate. I still remember the day she left school. She looked at me with extreme arrogance and disdain and said, "For someone as poor as you, the college entrance exam is the only way out. But not for me. Maybe when you've studied hard for years, you could get an intern position at my company." Did she have many other paths? When I was young, the fish I caught were unruly in the water, but once out of the water, they were at my mercy. She was such an annoying fish. Even if I had to drain the river, I would catch her and see how she could continue being arrogant. So, I leaked some recordings of her, the kind that would easily provoke public outrage, to a few media accounts. As a result, with both our efforts, her family's company collapsed even before my senior year of high school ended. I thought they could at least last a few more years for me to take them down properly. I wonder where the heiress's other paths are now. I worked on my exam papers at lightning speed. After the final exam ended, both my parents were waiting for me at the entrance. We were about to go celebrate with a meal, but Kevin was standing not far away, holding a big bouquet of flowers. He tried to smile, but all he managed was a twitch of his lips. My mom noticed him at the same time I did. She shielded me protectively, like a hen shielding her chick. Frowning and glaring at Kevin, Kevin stood silently there, eventually placing the flowers on a nearby bench before turning and leaving. No one bothered with the bouquet, and when we finished eating, we saw the cleaning lady throwing the flowers into the trash. Chapter 11. After the college entrance exams, I got into the university I wanted. I lived my life in college for over 2 years, thinking I would never cross paths with them again, until Misty, after going bankrupt, turned to live streaming for her livelihood. For the sake of gaining viewers, she tilted her stream, ruined by the province top scorer. Family destroyed. She claimed that I had deliberately incited netizens to cyberbully her back then. People's memories are always short online. And initially, she really did manage to gain some traction. She even found herself a boyfriend, creating a public persona as a devoted wife. As for Kevin, since he hadn't even taken the college entrance exam and due to the trouble he'd caused his father previously, his father's love for him began to wane once more. They didn't stay long in the mansion. Soon they moved back to the old neighborhood, though this time we were no longer neighbors. After starting college, I brought my parents to live with me, and we sold the old house. Using the attention I gained back then, combined with my reputation as the top scorer in the province, I contacted a publisher and published some of my old study notes, earning significant royalties from it. So now we have a new home. Someone from my hometown told me about Kevin's current situation. He seemed to be idle, rarely going out, and since we were once friends, I thought it wouldn't hurt to find him something to do. I paid someone to exaggerate Misty's current success to Kevin, but it seemed that Kevin had changed. He didn't seem interested in revenge anymore. Instead, he chose to try to mend things and sought to leverage their past relationship, hoping Misty would help him out. I found it boring, thinking it was time for all the loose ends to be tied up. Then, things took an unexpected turn. It turns out Kevin had been lying in wait. Somehow, he managed to supply Misty with fake products. Over 10,000 orders were placed, and Misty now faced a tenfold compensation for fake products situation. It seemed Misty would spend the rest of her life paying off the debts. However, Kevin wasn't immune either. He seemed indifferent to his own fate, only wanting to drag her down with him. At that time, the brand my classmates and I had started was in need of exposure. So I didn't miss the opportunity. I released some old evidence, metaphorically kicking them while they were down, and took the chance to launch our own products. I also pledged that a portion of our annual revenue would go towards supporting underprivileged students and combating campus bullying. We even collaborated with the company that had sponsored my father's surgery to release a few co-branded products. When I returned to my old high school, I looked at my former classroom and thought back to that desperate night when I jumped into the river. At that moment, I only had one thought in my mind: I would make it out, and I would save myself. On the day of my graduation, I received a package. By that time, Kevin had already been imprisoned for financial crimes. I opened the box, and inside was the gray scarf from years ago. It turns out he had secretly retrieved it. I let go of it, and the scarf fell into the trash once more. Things that don't belong, along with people who no longer belong in your life, must be promptly discarded.